This episode is brought to you by Mel Brown Money, who makes dealing with your finances simple without the jargon or finance bro energy. Mel is a financial educator, best-selling author, and former financial advisor who's helped tens of thousands of people understand their money, invest with confidence, and actually build wealth. And if the word wealth feels icky, think about it this way. She helps you build choice. Through her courses, webinars, masterclasses, speaking, and books, Mel brings both the heart and the smarts to finance. Because the truth is, you're never too young, too old, too broke, or even a little bit broken to get better with money. And that's exactly what Mel helps you do. Welcome to The Climb, a podcast about the messy, brilliant, relentless journey of building something meaningful. As an introvert who believes in adding value, not noise, every 40-minute conversation is built to respect your time, but also actually teach you something useful.
Welcome to episode 1. This is so exciting. We are starting with TDP's biggest climb. We're ripping the Band-Aid off and telling you all the behind the scenes of TDP's, I would say, worst year, but it probably realistically spanned a few years, right, Cherie, of just some really hard times.
Oh, yes.
Big breath out for today's episode.
Yep.
So let's call it what it really was, the no good, very bad year of TDP. So Cherie, today you're going to take the floor, walk us through what that year/years looked like for you. I know a little bit of this story, but today we're sharing more than you've ever shared, and we are so excited to jump in. So without further ado, Cherie, take it away.
Thank you. I can't believe we're kicking off our first ever podcast with TDP's hardest story. But yeah, Steph, I just thought let's rip the Band-Aid off, get this one out of the way. And I thought, let's think of this in a movie kind of analogy. So with this episode, given that it's the no good, very bad year, it sort of reminded me around this time of Shawshank Redemption. Like it's what's required of a person who, in his example, was wrongfully imprisoned, but to just climb through that tunnel of shit. I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of shit year. This was that year. It was an absolute tunnel of shit. So we're taking it back to 2020. TDP wasn't completely negatively impacted by COVID initially. We weren't one of the very, obvious hard luck stories where businesses were forced shut and, things like that. However, we were impacted. So I don't want to be boring or predictable, but COVID was sort of, the beginning for us. And I'll never forget sort of waking up on one particular March day, getting email after email. It's like they all came 1 minute apart without them having any relationship with each other, but they were all our clients. And with the just click of a finger, basically almost overnight, we lost 76% of our client portfolio due to forced business closure. Now, Steph, you're in here at TDP. You know what it's like to be within the agency setting, and you know what the impacts of a mass client loss like that would look, feel, and sound like. And so yeah, I just, I'll never forget the optimism of the team. When I say optimism, I think it's more like just absolute innocence, many never having worn a founder hat before. And it's just that wide-eyed innocence of them staring at you on a virtual screen, because we're in lockdown at this point, and sort of saying things like, we're going to be okay, yeah, Cherie. I'm like, uh, how do I answer this?
Yeah.
This woman, I'm definitely designed for honesty. And I remember saying to them, yeah, because
How comforting.
I'm just thinking, yeah,
Well, it's kind of like, in a way, we have to
we,
be, don't we? Like, we can't, the attitude can't be any different than optimistic,
that's
but
it. That's
yeah,
it.
the
I'm like,
realities are real. Yeah.
never back down, never what. It's just that this is going to be quite the what.
Yeah.
And so I felt really dishonest looking at them and promising that we were going to be okay when I have enough business acumen to know that we were going to be out of business within 1, maybe 2 months. And
Wow.
yep,
That's soon.
yep, yep. So if you think about the particular pay run that you're running and you've just lost the bulk of all incoming cash,
Yeah.
I could The math
The math.
weren't mathing.
Yeah. Or even worse, it was mathing.
That's actually
Yeah.
called in, called
Yeah.
up. It was mathing, and the
Yeah.
math was saying, this is not good, you know. But the thing about founders is, and this is where I really feel for team. Honestly, I feel for employees where if you work for a founder led business, it's not in us to tell people when stuff is wrong. We're like your Ted Lasso's, we're like, yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And so I remember at this time I felt like the band on the Titanic, where I just remember saying even to Dave, I'm like, the ship's going down, but I'm gonna play the most beautiful song. Like, I'm so proud of this business, and it just felt like that scene in, it's a really bad link to make, but The Wolf of Wall Street, when Leo DiCaprio is like, I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking giving up. And then the brokers or whatever are like, yeah. I felt like that guy, yeah, it was really hard. My team wouldn't have known. And maybe they should have known. Maybe founders do a little too much of that band on the Titanic. And I think for a business my size, looking back with everything I know now, I should have brought at a bare minimum our senior leaders in to say, uh, we ain't good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what made it especially harder was not only was the business not going well, every person around that time was not doing well individually. They were in forced lockdowns, first time in 100+ year type event. People are just doing this thing that they were seriously unprepared for. I had some people on my team, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, experiencing a level of loneliness they've never felt before. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I had some people homeschooling 3, 4 kids, that's not fun.
No.
And so, in fact, it was never homeschooling. It was pandemic schooling is what teachers refer to it now. Like, they're like, hey, parents, like, love you, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. You were not homeschooling, you were pandemic schooling. So there wasn't a lot of schooling happening. And, it got to this point, even at the digital picnic, when we were so used to being such a team, it got to this really shitty point where people were sort of arguing over who had it worse. Like, I really hated that period. You really felt the divide between, say, a working parent and the person really slogging it out in a 1-bedroom apartment thinking, I'm going to die from loneliness, and it shouldn't have been a competition. Everyone had it hard in really different ways. But if it is a competition, I'm going to say I fucking had it the worst. Because
Classic founder right here.
what a bro.
Yeah. She's like, I really shouldn't have been like that, but if it was, I'll take the cake.
Let's stop arguing. I had it worse.
Yeah.
And the reason why I used to say this to Dave, and I would never share this with team, but I used to cry all the time during this period, Steph, because I was just saying to Dave, I don't know what it's like to do just COVID, because I'm doing COVID 24, 30 plus times in 20, 30 plus different ways, for each member on the team and contractors and just even clients, for the love of God. Like, you could argue it was 50, 60, 70 plus different ways of doing one global pandemic, while still living in a very lucky country throughout that. So I will, just say I'm not a victim. The fact is, it was quite the crunch, and it really took a toll on me. I know enough about myself through really in-depth leadership assessment to know that my particular personality and just the way that I'm not built, I don't get high from conflict. I'm not one of those people in those industries where I'm like, God, I can't wait to fight with some fucking people today. I just couldn't think of anything worse, to be really honest. Like, it's such an energy drain for me to be in conflict all the time. I'm that annoying one in friendship groups where I'm like, can't we all just get along? Have you ever been in the group chat where it breaks into a fight and you just sit there like, guys. I'm that. My friends all call me Switzerland. I'm just so neutral and just not for fighting. So yeah, if I'm being really honest, I said that tunnels of shit start before it feels like a tunnel of shit. I can get realistic and recognize that we had significant cultural problems niggling well before this really felt tunnel of shitty, and I definitely put my head in the sand over these. I did not have at this time the leadership acumen to recognize the red flags or know how to deal with them, because admittedly, founders, most of us don't go in with much, if any, leadership experience. I know for a fact that I launched into the digital picnic for nothing other than the absolute love of content strategy. That's just everything else I've had to learn, and so, yeah, I definitely put my head in the sand on some really challenging cultural problems at the digital picnic that I wished I'd not. We had really non-existent feedback culture. When it was given, really explosive reactions to really basic feedback, designed to help a person grow. And, that's on me. That's definitely on me. But I can remember the most, Dave refers to it as my most piss weak moment in the history of.
God love Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Um,
Keeping you so humble.
oh, so humbled, forever humbled. He's like, wow, Shez, that was piss weak. So I'd given some pretty basic feedback, really constructive, definitely intended to help a person grow. The response was explosive. I was so caught, I just couldn't even believe the reaction. I definitely thought I'd made a mistake. Like I thought, oh my God, I don't know how to give feedback because this is unhinged, So I felt terrible. So I bought that person a gift.
Oh,
Piss week.
piss week.
Dave
Hashtag
has a
piss
point.
week.
All right, Dave. And I share that one story because I want to let anyone who's listening know, yeah, what a way to erode any good thing that you've tried to achieve by giving someone feedback, by going immediately into fawn. It's like, I keep using this analogy and I share it all the time, but it reminds me, my leadership back then reminded me of those dogs in a dog park that when another dog approaches, you're straight on your back, all four legs in the air. I was like, and that's piss weak. Definitely take full accountability for being the reason that our culture got to such a non-constructive, pretty uninspiring, kind of spot. I always say, like, if you think having tough conversations if that's hard for you, wait until you see the result of not having those tough conversations.
Literally.
So much worse.
That's in all life.
Oh my Lord.
Not just professional, but all life. And once you have them, you feel so much better, right? But there's always that little voice in your head that's like, just don't say anything.
Yeah, or if you do, oh, here, have a gift. Sorry for trying to help you grow, So, yeah, look, really horrific people please around this time, right through to senior leadership. Like, how are they going to get inspired to, do better when they're not seeing that from me?
Yeah.
It wasn't great. All in all, 2020 laid a really dangerous foundation for what was coming next. I'm going to say, though, in this year, it wasn't all bad. We actually had some wins throughout this period. Many actually, but I'm not going to name them all because I'm talking tunnel of shit here.
Yeah, today is the negatives, guys.
Absolutely. You ain't here to be inspired. You're here to be like, whoa.
Yeah, hope will come in episode 2.
But look, I do want to reference two beautiful things that I was really proud of during this period, because it just reminds me of who I am as a person. Like, it actually reminds me that even in the depths of, tunnel of shit, I can still find a way to find the good, right? So two things that come to my mind is, one, I really hated how much we were spending on our rent. It was such a diabolical waste of money when we couldn't at all even visit the offices. So we opened them up to multiple folk who were experiencing homelessness. And we even partnered with like a vigilante group that gets women out of DV homes for the first 24 hours, because where we were was the perfect location, in terms of safety. I think Channel 7, 9 and 10 caught wind of that and wanted to push that in the media, I guess, like on literally TV. I should share the screenshot with you, Steph. I've got it somewhere in my LinkedIn DMs, but I said, no, we're not doing this to be shared on TV. We're doing this because it just feels good to do something quietly and silently and make a difference. But I was really proud of that. I really was. And then the second thing that I loved so much was during this year, this is taking a lot of businesses back in terms of memory. And some are going to hear this and think, fuck you, TDP. But hear me out. We received two very unexpected cash injections for businesses that were impacted by COVID. We didn't apply for it. We at this point, we'd recovered from the 76% client loss. So I did in no way would have signed up for any kind of cash injection because I was like, no, save that for the businesses who are literally folding, And so we got two, both of them were $10,000. I didn't feel good about it. It just made me feel really unsettled. And at first I was like, I guess I'll keep this in the bank account in a separate account and find a way to, I just knew it was going to get taken off me. I was like, someone's going to figure out we were not meant to get this, right? And then I thought, no, I can do better. And I just realized I had this moment where I'm like, it's time to pay the rent to the First Peoples, And so we gave it to two Indigenous organizations. And I just felt really proud. Like, it was such a surreal feeling, Steph, to log online to a normal donations page. I didn't even know they could go up to 10,000, by the way.
Yeah.
I've only ever donated to charities like to the tune of 100 or, something like that. And then I clicked 10,000. My hands were shaking.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but it did. And it just made me feel really proud.
Yeah.
So we paid our rent. And that made me feel really good that even when you're in the thick of it, you can still find a way to do good. And it's like those people who might find wallets with a wad of cash in them and they just return it. Like I've always loved people like that. My dad is one of them. And I just felt like the government gave me this wallet with a wad of cash that did not belong to me.
Yeah.
So I put it in the right hands and I felt really proud of that.
I love that.
Anyway, that's too shiny. Let's go back to the tunnel of shit.
Yeah. That was far too shiny for episode 1.
We've promised tunnel of shit, so let's get ourselves across to 2021. So let's talk financials.
Okay. I'm nervous.
You should be.
So had at this point we recovered that loss that you were just talking about?
We actually did.
Yeah.
In that we let all the clients obviously leave. 76% did leave. They tore up their contracts. They were in contract, but I knew that we would be the most gigantic pieces of shit if we held them to contract when their businesses were forced closed. Like, who would do that? I know many in our industry would actually. I could almost answer that myself, but we could never do that, so we didn't. And then I thought, well, it's over. Like, I just had this sick feeling. I couldn't believe, and I remember crying to Dave. There was a moment one night on the TV where our current, at the time, Prime Minister got up and he couldn't even pronounce, I think, Pilates or something really basic. And he laughed. And this was about industries. He was revealing industries that had to be forced closed and he couldn't pronounce it.
Oh.
And I just burst into tears and said to Dave, this is our country's leader. Laughing over like mispronunciation, like mispronouncing correct, but don't laugh. That's not funny because you're literally closing like livelihoods here. And that's the moment I burst into tears because I said to my husband, Dave, I've almost to this point, like something like 5 years in, right? 5-ish years into business, I've made one good decision after another. I haven't made the big mistakes that often close a business. And now this virus that no one could have predicted is probably on its way to closing my business. I just could not wrap my head around that. It's just an absolute mess. Look, we got lucky where a few big government contracts came through. They just knew so much about our business and only wanted to work with us. We didn't even have to go to tender, which is unheard of in government. And they saved our asses. They absolutely saved. So we regained what we'd lost in monthly recurring revenue through these 6-figure plus government tenders that we were servicing throughout COVID. And it was really proud work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guardian angels just coming to the doorstep.
Absolute guardian angels. And you know what? Good things happen to good people. So I feel like we were just really looked after, but deservedly so, And it meant that we got to do, even at one point, we got to do pro bono work with those Indigenous organisations that we donated to. So that felt extra good.
Yeah. Full circle.
Amazing. So, all right, back to tunnel of shit.
Yeah. Sorry, we keep getting
too little optimists.
Yeah. We're trying, guys. We're trying.
So financials, let's get through to 2021 now. So 2020 was like the shock and we didn't fare as poorly financially towards the end. We'd, almost had a bit of a boom because e-learning really picked up because everyone was home forced home. So they were like, well, I can't market, so I'll just upskill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we like let people know what e-learning means at TDP, what that
My
looks
bad.
like?
Yes. All right. So that's all the teaching that we do for any businesses, large or small, and marketing professionals. For anyone who upskilled with us during that time, if you're listening now, thank you so goddamn much. You kept this business's doors literally open, and I'll get into that very soon. So heartfelt thank you, actually. I never
Amazing.
forget those students. So finances, 2021, we had an external advisory group. It was awful. We were paying a really large monthly retainer. And we were promised really proactive accounting advice. You know, the founder was amazing, honestly, and that's what we sort of sold into. And then within a few months, we were flicked to team. Fair enough, honestly. Like, a founder can't service everything, but it was really bad. And so it went from proactive accounting advice to reactive. And then, even worse than reactive, it got dangerously delayed. You've got to do better with your accounting. You know, a business like ours, within an industry like ours, we can't be playing 2-month catch ups on how the numbers are tracking, like, especially in a year like this one. So, yeah, that was really, really bad advice. What we should have done was what we have now, which is bringing that advisory in house. It was always there. We just weren't putting our beloved Michelle Howe up in the lights that she deserves to be in, doesn't she, Steph?
She does. Yeah. She's an icon.
She is a TDP icon. She's literally bachelor qualified to do this. We just were underutilizing this magnificent woman. I guess in 2021, we actually would have made an even bigger loss than the loss that I'm about to share. However, what happened was we're still in the thick of lockdowns at this point, but I'm really proud to share. I had this moment where I remembered who the fuck I was. And I sat in, this sounds like privileged girl talk. I promise. I live in the inner west of Melbourne. It is like, you know, small home central. There's no backyards, but I do have a walk-in wardrobe, and that's a big deal in the inner west. So I just want to say that walk-in wardrobe was kind of meant to be, because it was the only fucking room in my home that was quiet, soundproofed, and I got to sit in there. It was so messy, but I put my desk in there, my Mac, recording equipment, and I built a program from scratch that sold $500,000 in sales. That we've never repeated that in all of TDP's history. People really believed in me, in us, in that program, and they genuinely benefited from it. So it was, it was a really incredible program, a social media marketing accelerator. I was really proud of it. It made $500,000. I got a little too excited. And I guess in Cherie Clonan style, I ended up looking at how much we made and thought, I feel guilty. So I gave $1,000 to each TDP employee, but we also paid the tax on it. So it was actually quite a bit more. I think it came to a total of between 50 to 70K.
Oh. And what did Michelle say about that?
Yeah. Look, she wasn't happy. The worst part about it was an absolutely pointless spend. There are still some OGers at TDP, and no problem. Like, this is literally no problem, but they can't remember that happening. They're like, oh, did that happen? And I'm like, yeah, it did. So it just, why would I do that? No one else built it. You know, like, no one at all in any way, shape, or form contributed to that program. What I should have done was kept that 50 to 70 grand and put it towards a full-time employee, like maybe an entry-level coordinator coming in and helping the goddamn team out for a whole year. You know what I mean? I later learned, actually, and I wish I'd learned before, I did Mel Brown's My Financial Adulting Plan, and I learned about money mindset. You would have to do the course to understand. It was like this breakthrough moment for me where I realized why I'm like this. And it's not good. Doesn't have beautiful roots. It's paired back to some childhood type stuff. Won't go into that too much, you know, but to Mel Brown, like, literally, if you're listening, and thanks again for sponsoring this episode, it couldn't be a better fit, because she, through her programs, taught me so much about why do I do that? You know, I should have believed that I was deserving of that. And I really do regret giving so much of that away when it didn't mean anything to anyone, because I remember their faces. They were like, oh, okay. But they just didn't understand why they were even getting it. They were like, thanks, I guess. Like, it had that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make those people receiving it feel proud, because they didn't feel like they deserved it, because they hadn't touched the program, in any way, shape, or form. So I've learned so much. If I could go back in time, my God, I would definitely get that 50 to 70K, back, because the reality was that I spent days, nights, and weekends on this program for 6 months straight, Steph, before it launched. 6 months of days, nights, and weekends. Yeah, it got to a point close towards the end of the build where I think this is the first time ever that I hit full physical burnout, and I had to keep pushing through, which is a disaster for founders. There's just no value in a business once the founder hits full, physical and mental burnout. And I was there. And so I had to then delay the launch, a little bit, just to kind of recover. So instead of that $500,000 pushing us worlds ahead like it should have, it actually did nothing more than put band-aids over where we were really hurting within the business, which was that all of our departments were not hitting bare minimum revenue targets. We were losing so much money across every department at the Digital Picnic that was only, I guess, superficially covered up by how well e-learning was performing, especially with that program. Now, at this point, alarm bells should have been ringing, but I think just a combination of that initial external advisory that I, shared with you, and my own internal, like, oh, just put my head in the sand and hope it gets better. It just had us superficially in a like, this is fine kind of mode. It was not fine. So I think what was alive and really well for the Digital Picnic in 2021 was people please and really reactive leadership. So we made, I know what people are going to think when they hear this, we made internal promotions that we couldn't even afford just because people stomped their feet and said, I need this. I'm like, I believe in you. Sure. We made external hires before the work was even there, due to that reactive leadership. I guess, don't get me wrong, like historically I have hired before the work has been there. I've usually done that knowing that it's just a couple of months away, not 6 months.
Yeah.
Not someone sitting and twiddling their thumbs in boredom,
Yeah. Just as they're warming up to the business, and then they can step into that work.
It sets a really bad tone, to be honest. Like, I would say to any founders, especially listening to this, if you hire people so far before the work is even there, they come in and they're like, oh, okay, cruise mode. And that is dangerous, because when you actually give them work that gets them to not even beyond capacity, just literally capacity, they're like,
Can't do this.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's not fair on them. So yeah, I think around this period, we were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why?
Because people please and the team saying, I'm at capacity, I'm beyond capacity,
Yeah,
I need
right.
more support, I demand more support. And I was just the dog in the dog part, like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just make
Coming
more
right up.
losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get that for you. I felt like Aladdin, like Genie in a lamp. When he pops down, he's like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
Like, it gave Genie vibes. I was like, okay, without the Genie bank run.
Yeah.
Shame about that. So honestly, when I think back to 2021, that was such a rock bottom for TDP. It was just literally one of the worst years I've ever had. Our culture was something that I was just so uninspired by. It was so individualistic when I'm such a team player. Absolutely lacking in accountability. We had some really great team members. Honestly, we really did, but not enough. And when you've got, say, a small selection of A players, but they feel surrounded by D, sorry to say it, but it's true. It's sort of, you feel like you're drowning in folks who detract from culture rather than add to it. So it really didn't matter how good those A players were, honestly. If you've got the multiple B, C, even D, I can wholeheartedly say the science of leadership will tell you, and it doesn't use these exact words, but you're fucking cooked.
Yeah.
The
writing's on the wall.
The writing was on the wall. I've spoken finance, but to, speak to the operations, contributing to some of the big failures around this period. I want to first say finishing up financially on sort of more financy talk is, you only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down. I don't think you understand what it's like to be, I'm not an old person, but I'm also not young. I'm somewhere in the middle, right? And I just thought it felt like a life sentence. To be honest, I thought I am never going to recover from this. And I remember just feeling so ashamed and feeling like I'd destroyed my husband and I financially for the remainder of our days. I definitely thought my kids, I could just picture them maybe even ending up with the debt or something. Like I just could not see a way out. I was in like, kind of mode, Honestly, a loss like that, which is huge. By the way, just so you know how long it takes for anyone listening, I have not repaid that debt yet. Like I've taken small chunks off, but we ain't there yet. This is how long it takes to recover from really poor decisions and really weak leadership, or as Dave would say, piss weak. Thanks, Dave. So the operations piece, basically our operations were costing us more than we were making. We were only really superficially covering it up, by, like I said, the fact that our e-learning was doing unbelievably well during this period. It was doing so well. But the issue was, e-learning was at that time especially still only serviced by me. Those external advisors used to get so frustrated because they would say, you could close your business tomorrow and you would be on $1 million plus salary. And I couldn't even imagine a life like that. I was like, really? Because I think at the time I was on maybe 40 grand a year, maybe 60. I can't quite remember, so I just used to feel really frustrated as well, Steph, because e-learning, I always used to say to Dave, oh God, it feels like Marie Antoinette, where whatever was not being fulfilled within the business from a management services perspective, they'd be like, just create a new course. And it just felt like Marie Antoinette, like, let them eat cake.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, the people are starving and the people is me and I'm tired. So it just, it felt like that lack of accountability is a real problem, to just think, oh, go and make another course. Like that's not how it should be. The external advisors at this point were saying, okay, so you're working between 70 to 80 hours a week. Your yearly salary at this point was $40,000 per annum. How do you think this is going for you? Like, that's going great. Thanks for asking.
Tears just falling down the face.
Oh, like honestly, 40 under 40 at the time. It's like, where was Forbes? Like, come and talk to me. Put me on your front cover. Look, that monthly recurring revenue was missing. And ironically, what we needed was leads to the business. But I would log into TDP's Instagram and we'd have every week 10 plus DMs. Like, I know it doesn't sound a lot, but that's a lot for when you need leads and they're not there. Hi, I tried calling, but your phone just rings out. So problematic, and I did raise a lot, like, can I help? Like, can I pick up the phone? But it wasn't a vibe, so I put my head in the sand on that one as well.
So who was meant to be picking up the phone?
Just anyone. Just to keep in mind, people were homeschooling children still at this point.
Yeah.
So I wasn't mad about the phone not being picked up. I just escalated it because I was like, I can take the phone.
Yes.
If you can't pick it up, I can take that happily. I'll be like, yes,
yeah,
sign up. We'd love to support you, and so on. So I think the moment I realized we were in absolute danger, it was a Monday morning. At this point, we were out of lockdowns for a short time. Like, it's just hard to remember which lockdown we were up to at this point. But whatever we were at, it was somewhere in that point where we were actually allowed back in the offices. I remember realizing, oh my Lord, it's got to a point where some folk on my team just don't respect me, because I remember being pulled aside before a whip might have been kicking off with team, and just gently, and I don't think they were trying to disrespect. But it's just that I had dimmed my own light and allowed myself to become invisible within my own business. And they sort of said, like, best you don't speak in this meeting. The suggestion was I probably don't add value, so pretty rough. And so that's when I realized, oh, I'm invisible. I remember that moment so vividly. It's actually hard to talk about, so I can feel some tears in my eyes at the moment as I'm talking, because that was really fucking devastating to just realize, wow, how does that happen? And I remember the light going out then. That's when it happened. I just remember I actually gave up, you know, and it's really dangerous when the light goes out in a founder for a founder-led business. You essentially close the business's doors without officially saying it, you know. So from there on, every Monday and in almost every meeting, I shut up, you know, and I remember thinking, I won't talk. And I watched the business. I'd poured so much blood, sweat, and tears into it. And it just became something I wasn't even proud of. Like, I just didn't feel really proud to put my name to it, to be really honest with you. It is without doubt the saddest I've ever, ever felt as a founder. Like, I just can't describe the sadness. I hated my business. I hated driving to the offices. I listened to the most emo music on every drive. I cried so much. I didn't think it was possible to cry that much. I just hated it. So that's when we reach rock bottom. I hope you're enjoying this tunnel of shit episode, by the way. But let me take you to 2022 now. So by the end of 2022, we're $500,000 down. I could not for the life of me see the way out. We were making consecutive monthly losses ranging between 20 to 100K, like I shared. And the worst part of that is it didn't matter what figures I shared to team, even especially senior leadership, there was no reaction. There was just no SOS, like, that's a real problem. I used to think, is there a tree in the backyard that just grows $100 bills that people think we can pluck from? Like, team, this is not good.
So at this point, you'd said to team, hey, this is the reality now.
Yeah.
I may not have shared it earlier, but I'm telling you now, this is
Yep.
bad.
It's much like what you would know now, Steph, where we gather on a Monday and we talk numbers with the teams. We've done this deliberately now at the Digital Picnic since, where we believe everyone has the right to that kind of transparent information, not the full brunt of it. We keep it like, you know, team friendly, especially for roles that just are not remunerated enough to take on that level of responsibility for in-depth numbers, right? But for the most part, we really transparently share with team. And yeah, we would share, okay, team, it's the end of this particular month. We lost over 100 grand. Next. Like, it really was that kind of energy. They're like, oh, okay. And I thought, nah, it's actually not, my friends. You know, that's more than I earn per year in 1 month lost. Actually, we're not good. And that's on me. That is not on the team. That is absolutely 1000% on me. I just was not holding folk to account and saying, not good. We've got to make some changes. You know, I wasn't bringing the sense of urgency. And yeah, it wasn't great. Now, you can imagine I'm really tired at this point as well. I'm working some big hours on fuck all pay. So the worst thing you can do is hire when you're tired. But I did that. And I made the worst hire that TDP's literally ever made. And it was not great because it was in that particular era where we couldn't afford to make a not so great hire. Let's get ourselves to September 2022. I'm beyond defeated at this point. I can see at this point no way out. I wanted to close the business, and I tried to do that. This will be a bit of a shock to a lot of people listening because I never shared this on social media. Why would I? Oh my God. Basically close it for us.
I wanted to close this.
You know, and so I wanted to do it with integrity. And when I got the external advice, I realized that the payment alone on closing a business with regards to so many long-term employees needing what is justifiably theirs, so payouts, we didn't have a dollar to do anything like that. So that was when I just thought, oh my Lord, I am literally trapped. I can't do this anymore, but I can't even afford to close. It's messy, you know. So I decided the best thing I could do would be to sell the business. I packaged it up and I wanted to make sure I sold it really well and to a person who could just probably do better than I could, that I thought I could do at the time. Probably needed to be obviously a really wonderful human being and a talented marketer. That's what I was looking for. But they needed to be a bit of a hard ass because at that point I realized good guys finish last in my industry and I'm like finishing last, you know, in the very like sense of the word. So I did. I quietly put that on the market for sale, this business, and a direct competitor immediately offered to buy the business. There was some back and forthing because they were not in Melbourne, and it was basically ready to go. However, just before the sale officially went through, I got COVID. I think it might have been my first time going down to COVID, actually. So there we go. That shows how introverted I am. I don't think I went down to COVID until 2022, which is quite the victory for a Melburnian.
Joining that club quite late.
Literally, I think I might have got it from bloody Coles. Can you believe it? Just getting some grapes. Dagnammit. Not to go into too much detail, but the sale fizzled. I think it was meant to be. It was at that moment that I realized nobody's coming to save you, and I think more business owners need to realize that. We keep thinking an external advisor or this particular consultant or X or Y or the next great hire that I'm making while I'm tired or, insert whatever thing you think is going to save you. Shush. That is just not true. The only thing that can save, especially at this point, it was me, and so I just had to dig so bloody deep. I needed to bunker down. I needed to turn everything around because I knew I couldn't afford to close. And I could not have $500,000 on my mortgage, letting my family down like that. I fired that worst hire. I did have to make our first redundancy. That was really hard. And then, really sadly, I had to go on to make 2 more redundancies within a 3-month period. So the 2 additionals ended up happening within 2023. Still to this day, there are online reviews online about me that talk about how disgusting it was that I did that. But I would just say to those people, have you ever run a $2 million per annum pay run? Because until you have and until you've felt what it's like to be $500,000 down with literally no way out, you tell me? Show me where the tree is in the backyard with the $100 bills because I would love to know what the alternative solution was. That's the really rough thing about business, honestly, that you have to make just the worst decisions. I will say founder hat on, those redundancies broke me, honestly. I don't hire to fire. It's not in my DNA, but business hat on, our largest operational expenses were wages and our services, being rendered were in no way coming close to covering wages and operational expenses. So yes, it was the hardest decision, sure, but it was an absolutely necessary one. And I think if I was to have like a Jim Carrey from Liar Liar moment where you've got no ability to lie, I would say I should have, the bigger regret is sadly not doing that sooner because I delayed what seemed like to be, still to this day, the inevitable. And the only place it got me to was $500,000 down instead of 100K or 50K. So I pleased nobody. I have online reviews, about myself because of those really hard decisions that a business had to make. It's so unfair, like it is, it's just like for them too. Honestly, I can imagine how it's just awful for everyone involved, but I should have done it sooner. I really should have. So that's a big story. This is episode 1. This is Tunnel of Shit. We deliberately, didn't we, Steph? We said there is no hope in this episode because we want to take you to episode 2 where we talk about, let's go back to Shawshank Redemption. Episode 2 is about, well, what happens when Andy Dupree climbs through his tunnel of shit? He gets to the island with Morgan Freeman. So in episode 2, we are going to talk about island life, but this episode is dark and hard and shitty, quite literally. But it's a very honest account of our no good, very bad year.
So if you want to listen to episode 2, subscribe to the potty, best way to support us, and also we'll let you know when that one is out. We promise it'll be a little bit more positive than this one. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to The Climb with Cherie Clonan and Steph Clifford. Here's to growth, grit, and bloody good stories.
This episode was brought to you by Mel Brown Money, who makes dealing with your finances simple without the jargon or finance bro energy. Mel is a financial educator, best-selling author, and former financial advisor who's helped tens of thousands of people understand their money, invest with confidence, and actually build wealth. And if the word wealth feels icky, think about it this way. She helps you build choice. Through her courses, webinars, masterclasses, speaking, and books, Mel brings both the heart and the smarts to finance. Because the truth is, you're never too young, too old, too broke, or even a little bit broken to get better with money. And that's exactly what Mel helps you do.